This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Forge fans, welcome back to another episode of Forge Daily. Today is October 26th, 2023. I'm your host, Mackenzie Barwell, here to give you all things Forge FC. I hope you all enjoyed yesterday's episode of Behind the Beard. Bobby and I sat down to chat about the CPL finals, so if you haven't already, I highly suggest you have a listen into that one, because he gave us a really good sense as to what to expect this weekend. But in today's episode, I am joined by Brendan Dunlop, so I'm sure if you're familiar with Canada soccer, you'll know exactly who he is. But for those of you who do need a refresher, he's covered the sport at the highest level, including the MLS and, of course, Canada's national team. More recently, he actually went to Qatar for the World Cup, so pretty safe to say he's got more than enough knowledge. He and I will be co-hosting the CPL final, which is so exciting. Let's get right into it and enjoy today's episode.
Okay, well, Brendan, thank you so much for coming on Forge Daily and making the extra time.
Thanks for having me. We got a pretty good game to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, my co-host for the CPL final. Can you feel the excitement building in anticipation for this one?
Yeah, of course. This is such an amazing season, and it wouldn't be, the end of a CPL season if Forge weren't in the final, right? So The fact that they get to host it, and, we're a couple of years removed from what was a COVID hosted event in 2021. Looks like the weather's going to be a lot better than it was. And I think, most of the people in the stands at Tim Hortons Field on Saturday will be hoping that the result is different than it was 2 years ago, too, when they lost the Pacific. So you couldn't ask for a better matchup, right? You've got two of the most recognizable faces in the dugouts, in the two coaches, and Bobby Spriniotis and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. going up against each other. Cavalry won the regular season, and Forge always wins in the playoffs. So
you're laying it out for me. Yeah, like you said, it's kind of become a rite of passage for Forge to be in the CPL final now.
I'm excited to see how Bobby sets up the whole week. Like last year it was like, I tell the players all the time, this doesn't happen every season. Bobby, it does though. It does happen for you. It actually happens for you every season.
Yeah.
And you've done it again a year later.
It's actually interesting too. Like you said, he has to make sure that the players stay motivated, have that desire to win. But at the same time, they keep putting themselves in a position where it's almost normalized to be in a championship match every single season.
It is, but the great thing about him, and like you see, I love all the behind the scenes bits that Forge put out, like where you get to see that change room, which has got to be one of the best change rooms in the CPL for one thing. And you see how he interacts with his players, and everyone loves to watch the all or nothing and the behind the scenes, welcome to Wrexham and all that, and like the way Bobby talks to them, it's very easy to see why his players would run through a wall for him.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as like stoic and as serious as we can see in the media side, like he is like that with his players, and he gets them to a point where they are contending for a title every single season, and they don't take it for granted. And there's it's the expectation that they have to meet that standard to get there. No one's taking it for granted and coasting. Like everyone puts in the work. He gets his players like to reach their max, and he's got some amazing players, and that's part of the reason why they're always there.
Yeah. It's so true that you say that. I actually spoke to one of the former Forge players yesterday, and he said the exact same thing. He said it's the respect for Bobby and almost the fear of letting him down, because they know how hard he works. They know like what goes on behind the scenes in the locker room. So yeah, that's kind of one of the driving forces for sure in their success. Let's talk pregame though, because we get to go to FanFest, and guess what? I think there's plenty of food, plenty of beverages. I think there's a performance from Tyler Shaw.
Hey, let's go.
So I think
rocking out Hamilton.
Yeah, I'd say it's safe to say that it's enough to get hyped for this game, right?
Yeah, easily. It's as I said, there's no rain in the forecast for Halloween weekend in Hamilton. Like, fingers crossed. Let's hope it stays that way. But no, it's Hamilton's such a great sports party town, right? The Grey Cup events that will be happening this year as well. But I mean, in the past, that's kind of like my comparable. It's very cool to see a city like that loves their sports, loves this team as well, loves their football, both varieties, right? So I'm hoping that the Hammer really turns out and has a good time, and we'll do our best to make sure everybody enjoys the party.
Exactly, 100%. We'll see everyone in the South Plaza who's listening. Okay, let's talk about the actual game itself, because Brendan, I know you're familiar with different kinds of leagues across the country. I know you've covered so many different teams at very high levels, but obviously Cavalry and Forge in the CPL, it's their 5th year now, and still a developing league, but can you touch on the kind of quality that these two teams are bringing to this game?
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams and both of these coaches have been able to find players that move on to the next level, right? And what we've seen in a very short period, 4 full seasons now, coming to the end of a 5th season, there's so much talent in this country. And both of these managers have been able to find some of the best and maximize that. And that's why they're both in this spot again. And for Cavalry to be in a situation where, 5 seasons in, they've always been near, they've always been contending, they've had their hearts broken in semifinals, and they lost to Pacific the year the Pacific upset Hamilton in Hamilton. They want this. They want this so bad. And for Forge, they want to keep this dynasty going forever. So they're certainly not going to push over, and they're going to put up one hell of a fight. So for a game perspective, 5 seasons in to get this matchup when there's a noticeable improvement in quality where this is a very exciting league to watch for a neutral. Whereas in season 1, if you were a hardcore fan, if you paid attention to League One, if you were interested in the development of the game, you were keen and you were on it. Quality of play didn't necessarily attract a lot of new fans, whereas the quality of play now is hooking new fans, and it's at a level that I think a lot of people had hoped it would be 5 years in, but really didn't expect it. We didn't have a track record in this country of having a professional environment that just sustained itself, let alone had a professional playing environment that it was as competitive as this. And honestly, not just blowing smoke because they're there in this final. These two managers, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. and Bobby Smirniotis, are a huge reason why the league is at where it's at. They've been able to cultivate amongst the best and get the most out of them. So we're really, really going to get a good game.
Yeah.
I know finals can be tight and it can be a stalemate, and I wouldn't be surprised if this ends 1-0. But I also wouldn't be surprised, and I'd hope that it's 3-2 or 4-3, which both these teams are capable of and have in the toolbox. So I think that's what makes it really exciting.
Yeah, no, Bobby's emphasized in so many times, including the post-match press conferences, that their matchups with Cavalry are almost always determined by small margins. Yeah. So yeah, I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 1-goal differential. But yeah, like you said, these two are rightfully in the final, two probably heavyweights and perennial contenders, as Andy Petrillo often calls them. So in terms of rivalries, we can look at the two teams, but are there any players in particular that you are looking forward to seeing kind of go head to head? Because I've got a couple ideas myself, but I wanted to see who you thought.
Well, you've got two of the best goalkeepers that this league has ever seen. And I think Tristan Henry is someone, who's vocally said he doesn't get the respect and doesn't get the recognition from the rest of the league as he feels he deserves. And the guy on the other side of it for Cavalry gets a lot of it. Multiple year Canadian goalkeeper of the year, I believe, and Marco Carducci, one of the most recognizable faces in the league, one of the most likable guys too, although a lot of people listening to this Force podcast might disagree with me.
Yeah, it's wrong crowd, Brendan.
Right. But Marco Carducci, coming back from testicular cancer this year, he's an incredible story. And anyone who talks to him or talks with Cavalry and that team knows that he's a real leader. That team's fighting and playing for him in a lot of ways. And he's just a real commanding guy who is an excellent goalkeeper as well. And Tristan Henry is that too. So they'll both be looking to steal man of the match honors and have the opportunity to do so, because I think they're both going to be very much involved and big factors in the game. And then you look at someone like Kyle Becker, a veteran who's one of the, if not the best player the Canadian Premier League has ever had, who's still performing, at an incredible level and could be the best player on the pitch in any given day. Which is the same way to describe Ali Musi, having not had the length of experience in the Canadian Premier League that Becker has had, but that he can be the best player on the field in any match week in the CPL. So to have both of those guys hopefully fit or as close to 100% as possible in the final should make it pretty electric, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You're taking the words right out of my mouth.
Maybe it's the great minds think alike. Maybe it's look at this chemistry brewing.
Exactly. Already. True. Okay, you're right, because like you said, Ali Musi not necessarily having maybe that same experience as as Becker, but still be influence and impact on the field, because some of those moments that he had against Pacific were difference makers. And yes, with Tristan Henry and Marco Carducci, absolutely, because they're both up for goalkeeper of the year. We'll soon find that one out. But I honestly just want to see Marco and Kyle. Like, I hope they get a lot of quality time together.
You think they'll be jawing at each other? You think they'll be? I can imagine the conversations with those two guys who, have been around each other a lot off the pitch, are definitely, amongst the two most notable faces in the league. They're also fierce competitors. I get the impression that they're quite friendly off of the pitch, although I don't think they're having dinner with each other.
No.
But I do think that, they certainly at league functions, like, they very respectable to stand next to each other and probably get on. But
they're not frolicking together off the pitch.
No, they're not. No. The jersey swap might come at the end out of respect, but the elbows will come up during the game, right?
There's only so much you can do, right? Okay, one other thing too, I know I briefly mentioned this to you off camera about those 3 arguments for either side that the CPL just posted in those 2 articles. I thought were interesting, and I wanted to get your take, because 3 of which were pretty compelling for the Forge side. The first being obviously the history of the team and having the opportunity to repeat that. New players making an impact like Benny Badabanga. And then lastly, obviously having these 2 weeks to rest, recover, and then prepare for a team that they find out a week into training. So if you're Forge, which of those do you feel like give you that big advantage that might make the difference in the championship game?
I think playing at home and the chance to finally win one at home, be the first team to ever win at their home field, I think that's such a driving force. I do often, debate whether it's better to be rested or whether to be in form. I'm of the mind that I'd rather be the team that's in form. I'd rather be the team like Cavalry that maybe hasn't had as much rest, but they've really been tested. They had to fight first for the right to host the final, which they lost, and now they're going up against a team that they lost to, having beaten one of the other better teams and one of the best teams in the CPL. So they're battle tested and ready for it. But obviously Forge are battle tested too, and to have played one less game, I'm sure that will help heal some wounds and heal some injuries that will make Forge even stronger and more of a threat. But I think playing at home could be a massive, massive advantage, because they want to give it to the fans. And as you said earlier about the players do not want to let Bobby down. I know how much it would mean for Bobby, because who knows what the future holds for him, right? There's a lot of conversation about what the next job might be. He's a hot candidate for the national team job, and we just don't know what the future looks like. But in the present, if Bobby can say, "Hey, I brought several titles to Hamilton, and I won one in Hamilton," if he were to depart for something else, that'd be a pretty good way to go out. So I know how much that winning on Saturday is going to mean to that team, which is going to make for a really exciting game for all of us to watch.
I might have to pull the Forge Audio Network host card here and say, to your point about Cavalry coming off a game where they're starting to pick up some momentum, maybe in a little bit more form. I think it's interesting, though, looking at Forge's season in terms of how they got to where they are now, because they haven't been as consistent, and this has been a big topic of conversation on the audio network. So all that to say, I don't know how much having that extra game and potentially an extra win in between would make an impact for this team, because they have proven to be so good in one-off matches.
Yeah, I think they're both going to bring the best out of each other, right? They're going to force the best out of each other. And as far as attacking teams go, obviously Forge can score a lot of goals, and they've got some real weapons. I do think that David Chouanier is someone who can turn a game on its head and can take over a game, much the same way we were just talking about Ali Musi for Cavalry. Throw in Sergio Camargo for Cavalry, and they've definitely got a real attacking threat. But that might be one of the better duos in the league as well. Those two. So how they can contain those guys will be key. But Forge have those pieces, right? Like Mandrakar James is someone that could be playing in MLS. And there's a few players in that Forge team that you could say that about. For Cavalry, as great as Ali Musi and Sergio Camargo can be, That defensive line that they'll have to get through at Forge is one of the best, and one of the reasons why they're here again in the final.
Oh, I'm excited, Brendan. Thank you for taking the time.
Me too. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. It was great to chat with you, and I'm excited to work with you and see you on Saturday.
Yeah, we're building the hype. We're building the co-host chemistry. I feel like this was very beneficial for us.
Yeah, the chemistry will be better than our internet service seems to be right now.
Oh my gosh, true.
Once again, a huge thank you to Brendan Dunlop for joining me. Before we finish up, though, I chatted with Noah Jensen today after practice to get his thoughts on match day and the 2023 season overall. Here's what he had to say.
I think the season was very up and down. It felt like there was always points in the season where we just kept saying, like, just be patient. We're going to start playing our best football eventually. And then, honestly, I don't ever think we did in the regular season. But the crazy part is, regardless of all the bad stuff and all the bad form we went through in the middle of the season, we finished in second place and we gave ourselves an opportunity to win one game to host the final. And when you do that with a group of guys who have experience playing in finals, playing in semifinals, playing in big games, if they can all come together mentally for one game, nobody can beat us. And so that was the mentality for the semifinals, and I'm sure that'll be the mentality for the finals. I think the details matter in big games for sure, especially playing against Calvary. They're a team that, I wouldn't say they rely a lot on set pieces, but whenever they get opportunities on set pieces, they're very good at executing. And that kind of stuff, defending that, comes down to details. And so even in their match against us and then the match against Pacific, they only scored on set pieces. So those are things that we've definitely taken into consideration. We've watched a lot of footage of them doing what they do, and it's just something that on the day we're going to have to be switched on and ready for, because if we can take care of that, then we're confident that they can't beat us any other way.
Do you have any championship superstitions? Like, you're with the team last year, took it home. Is there anything you're going to repeat this year just to, keep the same juju, if you will?
So funny thing is, I heard this quote one time from a tennis player, and they were playing in the finals of the U.S. Open. I think it was a women's player. She was getting breakfast with her friends, and her friends were like, "Oh, do you have any superstitions for what you eat on game day?" And she's like, "It's gonna take more than a breakfast sandwich for me to beat so and so." And so, as much as there's everyone has their routine and everything, I think it takes a little bit more than just tying your left shoe first than to beat a team in the finals.
That is so valid. That's probably the most.
So if you're ever nervous about a superstition, oh, I didn't do it today, it's going to take a little more than that.
It's going to take more than a breakfast sandwich.
Exactly.
All right, there you have it. All superstitions are off for the championship weekend. Thank you all so much for listening. We are officially match day -2 now, so getting closer and closer. If you haven't gotten your tickets already, I would do so ASAP, because 10,000 tickets have already been sold. You can expect the final episode of Forge Daily tomorrow when we listen into Media Day pre-match press conferences from both Forge and Calvary. So thanks again for listening, and have a fantastic rest of your Thursday.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.